Welcome back to the Bober Academy Football Podcast. And we're coming back to you in 2022 and kind of doing a restart here. This is our feature that we'd like to do every month. We did a lot during the football season, Pain to Performance with Nolan Clausen and Midwest Movement. And so here's kind of what it's going to look like. We're going to start 2022. We're still 8 months away from football season. So my mentality is as I'm training guys, as I'm introducing concepts is I want to teach my guys to start from scratch. And one of the precepts of success as an offensive lineman is playing in a football position. The first part of that is playing with their feet on the ground. And as I start these guys working out this January, I'm starting them out working in their socks because I want them to understand their relationship with the ground. And that's such a big deal. But I brought in Nolan today. Thanks for joining us, Nolan. We're going to talk about how important your feet are to offensive linemen and athletes in general. So when I teach my guys, I teach them to play on the inside third of their foot, which really brings in the big toe, and they want to have their feet connected at almost all the time on the ground because they want to be able to maximize that power and push off the only constant they have, which is the ground. So tell us about the feet, how they work, and how the feet work for athletes and some important aspects of those.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this starting 2022, starting with the feet, because I'm kind of a foot nerd. Chris heard me give a presentation about feet, and basically I could talk all day about these, but it's so vitally important, especially for athletes, because our feet basically are our foundation. They're the thing that are in contact with the ground at all times, or we hope all times, especially with linemen. And linemen, we're typically the biggest guys on the field. And what that typically means is we have the biggest feet also on the team. And so why not use those feet to our advantage? And so I love that he wants to train you guys with your socks on, because that's only going to help you guys be able to use the feet and be able to tap into your full capacity if we do that. So in our foot, which I got a little foot bone model right here, you can see there's a ton of little joints in there, little joints that move. And to you guys, that probably doesn't mean a whole lot, but because there's so many joints in there, it tells us that we have a lot of proprioception. And if you don't know what proprioception is, it's just your ability to understand where your body is in space. So there's 33 joints in our foot, and all 33 joints tell our brain at every given moment where our body is in space. And so when we put our feet in shoes, we always kind of joke around that if we took away shoes, we would probably be without a job because people would have a lot less problems. Mm-hmm. But basically, we put our feet in shoes at a very young age, and it dampens that ability to understand where we're at in space. So the fact that we're going to try to train without shoes is going to be very, very helpful in teaching our body to know where we're at in space. So the next thing is, Chris kind of talked about it with the practicing on our insteps of our feet. And what that does is it utilizes the big muscles in our body. So he talked about big toe. There's a lot of research out there that when we activate our big toe, or we curl it into the ground, you might hear this stuff with squat, but it activates our glutes, our big butt muscles. And football, especially linemen, we got to lower our center of gravity, and we got to drive people forward and not let people drive us backwards, right? And our glutes are our big powerhouse muscles when it comes to doing that. So if we want to get the most activation out of our glutes, we got to activate that big toe.
Yeah, and one of the things that I when I get guys in a football stance, I want them to be able to like shift their weight so that they don't have any wasted motion as they push off to either go forward or kick back or whatever it might be. And I've been telling them, in the foot that you push off, curl that big toe into the ground. Yep. And I didn't know it activates your glutes, but now that gives me more ammo to say, when you do that, you are locked in and you are ready to explode.
Yep. And one of the reasons it locks or activates your glutes is if you picture the whole backside from the bottom of your toes, and then that wraps up your calf and then into your butt, all those muscles are cased in a sling that we call fascia. And we know with research and studies that when we activate the furthest muscle out there, it activates the whole entire chain. It gets those muscles activated, right?
Wow.
So it's really, really hard to get your glutes activated if you're not using your foot muscles and vice versa. So um, it makes complete sense that we want to start using our feet.
Well, let me ask you a question. This pertains to linemen. So when I have linemen making their blocks, I want their whole foot connected to the ground as much as possible. So some linemen, especially in high school, they like to get up on their toes.
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of breaks that chain, doesn't it? Because if you're not really connected all with your foot, you're losing some of that power by not having your whole foot on the ground.
Right. Think about foundations of buildings, right? What's more or able to hold higher up, uh, or so buildings don't topple over. And basically, the more ground contact that we have, the wider the base, the better. So, like in the weight room, when we do squats, a lot of people will use like lifting shoes, really stiff shoes, and that's basically so that we can put as much force into the ground to lift that weight up. And there's a lot of studies that show that the more force you're able to put into the ground, the more athletic or the more impact you're going to have on the field or in your sport. So if you were simply to just try to push your finger into the ground or into a table, you're not going to be able to put a lot of force. But if you just try to do your fist, you're going to be able to produce a lot more force. So we
Nice.
want wider contacts so we have more area or more room to put force into the ground. Um, so we also talk about when we wear shoes or we tape our ankles, tape our feet, we often are, it's like putting them in a cast. We teach our body to basically rely on those shoes or on that tape. So, what happens to people when they have their arm in a cast for 6 months? You know,
It
they're
atrophies, right? Their muscles get
atrophy. The
smaller.
muscles underneath there start to shrink, and they show that that can even happen within 2 weeks. So,
Mm.
think about if you're taping your ankles or wearing shoes all the time, like you can't walk around even your house without shoes. You're just slowly atrophying those little tiny muscles that help you balance, but also would help you in force production.
Mhm.
So that's why I love that Chris is like wanting to teach people without shoes. It's amazing. It's a great idea. If in our office, if it wasn't frowned upon, we probably wouldn't wear shoes at all. So we try to take people out of shoes as quickly and as fast as possible, and as often. So
So as these guys, I mean, playing football, they're going to get their ankles taped. Would you just
yep.
suggest that they try to spend as much time like doing some activities, whether it's working out or jogging or running, outside of wearing, really stiff shoes and ankle tape?
Yeah. So the best activity we could do is walk around in sand or even uneven ground. So, like your grass out in the backyard. Anytime, I know it's cold out right now, but like in the summer or the springtime, try to get out of your shoes and walk around in the sand, on the grass, things like that. Uneven surfaces are going to teach your foot how to adapt to different
Mhm.
playing surfaces. So, pretty much in our daily lives, we walk on cement, wood floors, laminate floors all the time. So everything's really flat. But think about the football field. Nothing is flat. Even turf has, there's a little bit of rubber in one area, or you step on somebody's foot. And that's normally where injuries occur, is because your foot has no idea how to adapt. So
Mm,
we want to make sure that we give it the most chances or the most practice at adapting to those situations. And shoes absorb a lot of that adaptation. So if you practice without, or you walk around without shoes, then the time you put shoes on, you're still going to be able to have that ability to adapt to uneven surfaces.
nice.
So, and then the last thing, when we talk about stepping on the insides of our feet, I like to say like we're suction cupping. We're basically using our arch. So there's a bunch of little muscles that attach from the toes underneath. It's called our plantar fascia. You hear a lot of people that have plantar fascia injuries. But if we activate those muscles, we are going to cup the ground. Like that arch is going to be activated. And if we get our full foot contact, we're going to make that arch really, really tight. The reason it's called the arch is because if you look at bridges that have the arches, like cement bridges, arches are notoriously great at withstanding a lot of weight. So that's why your foot is called the arch. There are bones that form an arch right here. And those arches are really, really, really strong when we get those muscles activated. So like we said, we want good foundation so we can anchor to the ground so that those muscles, our big muscles, our hamstrings, our glutes, even into our core and our back muscles can get active and be able to drive people up off the ball. And then something I love to talk about is just basically when we wear shoes that form our feet rather than a shoe that is fitted for our foot, right? And so what that means is basically we cram our feet in all day long into shoes that have very narrow toe box. So you can kind of see, I kind of drew right here. In the red, basically the toes are really squished together. And if our natural foot, the big toe actually extends straight out, but when we cram our foot into a narrow shoe, that big toe actually moves in. And so when we're talking about big toe activating the glutes, if our big toe, if this is our big toe right here, if it gets pushed in here, we're not able to activate it or curl it into the ground quite as well. So try to stay out of shoes as much as possible and don't cinch those shoes super, super tight and find wider shoes. I know a lot of linemen have wide feet, so opt for the wide shoe as much as you can.
The foot coffins, as you call them.
Yes. Yeah.
And Nolan came and did a presentation to us about foot coffins and what they mean, and it just kind of sparked my interest in feet and how they apply. And we always talk about our feet with linemen, and again, it's just so important. And when I'm training these guys, I had guys last night, and I'll do some more tonight, and I put them in socks so I can see if their whole foot's on the ground,
Right.
you know. And one of the hardest things to teach them is how to maintain contact with the ground, but also push forward and also push backward, but still have a maintained total foot presence on the ground. They want to get up on their heels or they want to get up on their toes, and it's really hard. It's just a natural thing to want to do that because you feel like you can go faster. So I have to constantly back these guys down and say, you'll be good and fast and efficient at your movement, but you'll be very strong if you can learn how to play with your feet on the ground and your weight on your insides of your feet.
Yeah. And we didn't even talk about injuries, right? We're talking strictly about performance right now. But if you have a great foundation, like it's going to lead to way fewer injuries. If your foot's in the right spot, your knee is going to follow in the right spot. Knees are one of those kind of death sentence injuries. And if we can do anything to protect them, let's start with the feet. Get our feet in the right spot, use them the right way, and then it's going to protect us up the chain.
Yeah, and I know that the worst injury I had, and it still hurts me today, is turf toe. You know, I hurt mine so bad I dislocated my toe, and I played the rest of the drive. We were out in Oakland. Of course, it's a Raiders. We scored a touchdown, but I came off and I took my shoe off. I couldn't get it back on, and I missed the rest of the season. I missed 4 weeks, and then had to stay 6 weeks after the season. Just they had to teach me how to walk again because I lost that proprioception. And I continue to battle that today. You know what I mean? That big toe injury is such a big deal.
Yeah. So this will definitely help you out. Practicing without shoes, making sure that we have our feet in the right way is definitely going to prevent some of those turf toes. I had it also in college, and it was not pleasant.
Oh no, it's bad. And I wasn't at home, so they didn't give me the surgery. I just had to live with it the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Well, that's good stuff. It's such a great thing to have a scientific and a medical background on this to understand why this is so important. And as we progress through the month of January, what I plan to do is next week I'm going to feature a video showing the drills and showing how to keep your feet on the ground. We'll specifically talk about keeping your feet attached to the ground to get that maximum force and that maximum connectivity with the ground. And then later in this month, we're going to go over to a guy that Nolan and I both know really well, Justin over at a One Gym. And he's going to show us some exercises that we can do to really strengthen those arches and our ankles and everything around the feet. And it's one of those things that if you get an injury or you're weak at that foundational point, then you're really missing out on everything above that, right? It doesn't matter how much you bench if your feet are weak and they're off the ground, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm excited for that video. I'm excited to watch Justin teach you because there's some good research out there with that exercise, what those muscles that he's working on and preventing injuries. And so we're gonna start doing these exercises with all of our athletes as soon as we watch this video. So I'm excited to see that one.
Nice. I love the collaboration. Just as a reminder, our feet health is so important, and foot coffins, the shoes we wear,
Yep.
really are not helping us. So even if you do play football in cleats, do as much without your shoes on as you can. That's Nolan's main takeaway here is to do that, and your body will naturally develop that strength, that connectivity with the ground. So thanks again, Nolan, for
Yeah.
joining us here today. As a quick reminder, if you're listening to this on podcast, be sure to click the subscribe button. So that you'll get informed every time we do a new podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the little bell down there, the subscribe button and the notification bell. And for more information about Midwest Movement and what Nolan and them do, and Nolan's been great at taking athletes in this Elkhorn area where he's located and getting them back on the field or the court, whatever it might be, because he has an understanding of how our bodies work that doesn't involve throwing a bunch of tape or medicine at it.
Right.
So it's all about letting your body heal. And of course, for more information about about the Bober Academy and what we do, go to theBoberAcademy.com. So once again, Nolan, thank you so much for being on here. I look forward to doing this in 2022. Our plan is to start with the base and we're going to move up the body, right? Probably next month, we'll probably be featuring knee health and how to keep those in line and some of the things we can do. And we're going to work all the way up. And by the time we get to the football season, we'll have covered every major section of the body. And hopefully if people are following this, they're prepared to dominate on the gridiron just coming up in the fall. Okay.
Love it. Thank you.
All right, Nolan, have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Yep.